Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
We're continuing our leadership blueprint series. We've talked about integrity. We've talked about vision. We had a great podcast on empathy. We talked about decisiveness, resilience, and now we're moving on to pillar number 6, which is accountability.
This is a big one. And I think oftentimes this is the one that gets forgotten, or maybe not enough attention is given to it. The wrong people are held accountable. Maybe the leader isn't accountable. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong because of this, so I think this one and this one also probably isn't like the favorite thing for people. They're like, oh, accountability, here we go, so it's one of the pillars for a reason,
I like it as part of this because we've got, we talked about vision, which is where are we going, and I think that's such an important pillar. But then at some point you need to go, well, where did we end up and why?
Right.
Like, who led us here? Maybe sometimes whose fault is this?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's why accountability is hard, because as leaders, at some point, it's great because we love looking ahead,
Right.
but sometimes we have to look at our feet and go, where are they right now?
Right.
And are they where we set the vision? Sometimes the answer is no, and that's a good thing. Sometimes the answer is no, and it's a bad thing. But what I really like is that this is about both personal accountability for ourselves and helping those that we lead, through accountability and achieve what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's the hard work. It's the daily grind. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what the accountability is. So that's why it's not the most popular subject for people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's one that often fails. If you're a dreamer, well, vision's easy. If you're go with the flow, resilience is easy. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of them that you could do just because of personality. You're naturally good at this, but I think accountability is probably one that I don't necessarily think you're born with this. I think it's a learned thing. Or the other one, certainly all of them are learned, or we wouldn't be doing it because you can get better at them. But like I said, some of them have just by personality, you're better at one than the other. However, accountability, I think it's really just have you done it? Have you been held to that standard? Have you worked it? Have you pushed yourself?
We avoid this at all costs. We
Yeah,
love avoiding
yeah,
accountability.
yeah,
Let's talk about. So we've got 3 steps, just like always,
yep.
to not only make accountability a cornerstone of your leadership, but to make it easier. Because accountability can be a difficult subject. So,
Yeah.
the first one of these I really like, because I think we do this with, if you have a team that you manage, if you have kids, and even with yourself a little bit, we're talking about eliminating vague expectations.
Right.
Just because, like, it's impossible to hold people accountable to a result that you haven't clearly laid out.
Right. Yeah, and you as a leader, this is key. It oftentimes it's your fault. I mean, ultimately, it's all your fault. If you're a good leader, you're going to put
Mhm.
yourself in that position. But in the true sense, if the people you're leading, and like you said, whether it's family or it's in a business, your employees, you have to lay out the expectations, and they have to be specific. Now, they can be too specific and too tight, depending on what it is, but you need to make sure it's clear. So I like the idea that often it's not performance issues that's the problem with your employees. It's clarity issues.
Yeah.
You didn't lay out what you're expecting. So the
Mhm.
the first part of this is make sure you define what done is.
Yeah.
What does done mean?
Mhm.
Um, if you just say, "Hey, I need this report done." Okay, what report? Hopefully, you know what I'm talking about because I just
Yeah.
said this report. And then what's done mean?
Right.
I need to be specific. Mark, I need a 3-page PDF outlining this and this and this, and I need it tomorrow by 3 p.m. Now,
Yeah.
that's very specific. Okay. That's clarity. Now, do you need to always be that clear? Well, no, depending on what it is, but oftentimes we're so vague in it, and we're not defining what I mean by done and what you mean by done could be two different things, could be really far apart. And so it's important that you clarify that from the start.
Well, and in a world of constant, never-ending improvement, like as leaders,
Aha.
sometimes we hate done. Like we hate done. We want
Yeah.
everything getting better all the time. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. And I think the other thing that we struggle with a lot is especially when we're frustrated, is giving things an owner. Like who is in charge of this, right? Because I think so often we go, well, I don't know, like the leads just have to get called. Like I don't care who does it.
Right.
Like I don't
Yeah.
care who does it, just call the leads.
Yeah.
I don't care who cleans this house up. Like just somebody
Right.
clean this house up. And the problem is then you end up with four or five people expecting the other people to do it, and
Right.
then you come back and nothing's done.
Yeah.
And you go, well, these people stink. And it's not the people's thing, it's that nobody was at the lead, nobody was in charge of it.
Right.
Not saying I think you should like, go home and point at one of your kids and be like, you clean this house or
Yeah.
but I think it's important to put people, give people ownership of, the done standard. Like give them what done looks
Right.
like and then assign
Yep. And the
it.
last part of this is make sure you do some sort of recap. In a meeting, this is vital, especially if you have hopefully your meeting isn't just an information meeting. Sometimes they are, but it's information tied into specific actions. And if, let's say, you have a meeting of five with five other people, at the end of the meeting, hey, listen, let's review what you need to do. So, Mark, what are your top threes to do this week? All right, Sarah, what are your top threes? And you just kind of go through and you do it quickly. And if they can do it in a concise manner and tell you back, you did a good meeting, you communicated well, they took notes, they're sharp. But if they're like, I'm not sure, then you're going to have issues. Now, doing this on a personal level, you can certainly do that with your kids. As they get older, you don't want to treat them like little kids when they're a teenager. You need to start treating them like adults. But you can do some version of this also. Just a little recap. And what I found by doing that makes a huge difference in the results. And people miss things. When
Yeah.
you're talking to somebody, you're in meetings, things are missed. You said it, you remember it, you have notes but they didn't take good notes, or they were thinking of something else, and that happens quite often. So this recap can really help make sure things are done after the meeting.
Well, somebody told me a long time ago the hardest part of communication is when two people talk to each other and both people think they communicated clearly, but neither one understands what they're going to do.
Right.
So, and I think if you want to be a better communicator, one of the best things you can do at the end of, I mean, Joyce and I do this all the time when we start to plan our day is we go, okay, just to make sure like I understand what I'm supposed to do. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing this and this, and then you're doing this and this, right?
Yeah.
And then it's, we're both happier because at the end of the day, most of the things get done, right?
Yeah.
But building off of that, I think the second step in this is about feedback, and I think it's about frequent feedback. It's about building a high frequency loop of feedback. One of the hardest things I know in the workplace that I've dealt with in my life is like annual reviews. And the problem with an annual review is if somebody set direction for you in January and then they don't check in with you until December, if you've been messing up for 12 months,
Right.
like that's a lot of messing up.
Yep.
And hopefully they catch it in the middle, but I think it's important to have frequent check-ins.
Right, for sure, for sure. Now, this next one is a wins and lessons huddle. Now, this is good because you're doing two things. You're talking about, okay, this is what we won with. This is where things went well, and then what lessons did we learn from it? So you
Yeah.
have a category of praise and a category of improvement or correction. And sometimes it's not necessarily correction, it's just you need to get to it more. You need to put more focus on it. Or maybe it just needs more time. So it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it is something you need to put more focus in. But by doing those little huddles, and especially if you're working on a business, I think a daily huddle. And depending on how busy you are, maybe it's a couple different huddles throughout the day. Maybe it's two or three. Um, for home, I mean, you described a little bit of home and your business because you work with your wife. And let me make sure I have what we're doing today. You're going in this direction, I'm going in that direction, and then you check in at lunch. You know, maybe have lunch
Right.
together, and you enjoy lunch, but also there's a little bit of a huddle in there, 2 or 3 minutes to this is the direction I'm going in. This is what I did, and this is what I need to still do. You know, that way things aren't being done twice. You know, you both aren't doing the same thing, and then you're wasting time, or you're not. "Hey, oh, I thought you're doing it. No, I thought you're doing it," and that can happen as well. And that's where that huddle helps.
Yeah, and giving people, when you're talking about leadership, so much of it is making people feel like part of something.
Right.
Because nobody just wants to be on their own doing things. And I think having conversations with people that show how their, success or lack thereof impact the rest of the moving parts,
Right.
impact the rest of the team. And I think there's different ways to do this. I think a great way to do it is ahead of time show them why they're the important cog, right? Like you doing this and getting this done, successfully in this time frame is going to help the other people, kick off into their parts. And then the whole, clock is ticking in the right direction. And then if you still run into issues with people not performing, you say, look, your lack of doing this is stopping the clock.
Right.
Like we can't, we need you to do this because it's important for the team to move forward. I think that's such a good way to lead people, because if they feel like they're helping push the bus forward with other people, they're more likely to help.
Yep. Very good. And then step number three, this is lead with mirror first accountability. And as the leader, you are ultimately responsible for your team. That doesn't mean that they can go off the rails and it's all your fault. However, you have to take that. And the first part is when appropriate, make that a public apology. So if you messed up something, you made a decision and it didn't go well, you missed a deadline, you had a bad call. I mean, there could be a bunch of different things. If you're like, hey, listen, Mark, I missed the mark. Haha, Mark, I missed the mark. Um, I thought I had it. I didn't, I'm sorry. Let's work on trying to make this better the next time. And I'm the leader. I apologize to you, and then we're working on the solution together. That's going to make you feel better that if you have an issue that you can do the same. But you also know that listen, no leader is perfect. There's going to be issues, and so that just gives everybody else permission to say, hey, listen, we can work together. We're a team. We're helping each other. It's not just a dictatorship coming down telling you what to do.
Yeah. The next part of this I love is no excuses. No
Yep.
excuses. Right. And this is a dicey subject for a lot of people because listen, as a leader, things might not work out and there might be a reason. There might be a thing. It might have been, another teammate, right, that held you up. It could have been somebody on your team. It could have been the market. It could have been a technology flaw, things like that. As a leader, though, you cannot place blame on other things, especially in front of people, right? Your
Right.
job as a leader is to figure it out, right? And then look, if it didn't if it didn't work out and you have to apologize, it's not an excuse blaming other things
Hmm.
because what that
Right.
builds is a culture of other people who
Right.
are going to say, well, it wasn't really me, it was this,
Right.
right? Our job as leaders is to figure it out. Now, in private, I can go, well, this didn't work because of X, Y, Z. And then
Sure.
figure out ways to overcome that. But when we're working with a team, when we're working with our family, the last thing you want is to build a culture of people who point fingers at excuses.
Right.
Because when you point the finger, there's always three fingers pointing back at you.
Oh, yes.
I love that. I love that.
Then the last part of this step is being the standard bearer and actually do an audit. Think of you as a leader. What is one or two things that you need improvement on? What are one or two things that just happens that maybe you're late for this. You have a deadline, but you're the one that's late on the deadline. Um, it could be a bunch of different things. It could be something really small, and you identify that, and then you talk to the team and say, "Hey, this is what I'm working on for the next 30 days,
Yeah.
and help me stay accountable for it." And hopefully it's not something major. But if you've worked with somebody for a long time, they know your pros and cons. And if you're as a leader working on a con that can really make the team better, what are they going to do? Well, you're setting that standard, right? They're going to be like, oh, I need to do that, and I think that shows respect to them, but also they're going to have more respect for you because you're improving yourself. You're not just telling them what to do; you're actually taking your own advice.
This is where leadership by example, is just so
Yep.
important, right? Like as leaders, I think, one of the best things you can do is hold yourself accountable, not make excuses, and get the work done and show that you're growing and improving because people are going to catch on to that. The right people are
Right.
going to catch on to that. And of course, you're going to have people on your team. You can't do this with your family, but you're going to have people on your team who may not rise to the occasion, right? And that's
Right.
okay. They will move on and eke
You can't
out,
do
and
that
they'll
with your
find.
family,
You
or you
should.
shouldn't do that
I
with your family.
highly recommend not doing this with your family. But on teams, it's something to think about. So,
Hey, listen, son, your grades aren't quite where they need to be. You need to
oh,
find another place to live.
get
But I'm
out.
only 14. Hey, listen, life is hard. You may as well learn it at 14. So I shouldn't do that?
14-year-old used to be able to get married and move out.
That's
I mean,
true. All right.
really, if they're not up to par by 7, like I think we just let
Up
them
to par
go.
by 7. Hit the
7 years
road.
old, man. That's their new standard. But anyway, so I mean, accountability is important. To put a cap on it, it's not about being in trouble or getting people in trouble or beating yourself up, right? Because I think you have to have grace with accountability to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Nobody's perfect, but it is about results, right? Achieve results now. If all we have is vision, we just don't ever end up anywhere. We got to look at our
Right.
feet, right? So
Oh, yeah.
let's review our action steps quick. So action number one, eliminate vague expectations. This is like so important with team, with family, with everybody. Define what done looks like, right? Constant and never improvement is great, but you want to have a success. What does success look like? Who is responsible for that success? And then just have a quick recap to make sure what you think you communicated, you actually communicated.
That's key.
Yeah.
Action step number 2 is build a high frequency feedback loop. So part of that is the 2-minute course correction. So that's check it in, quick 2 minutes, make sure everybody's on track. Talk about the wins and lessons. So the positive and negatives, things that you like, things you need to improve on. You do that quick. Could be a quick huddle once or throughout the day. And then the last one is the impact conversation. When you're holding someone accountable, just builds a team. But
Yeah.
and other people see that on there, and they're going to do the same.
Yes, 100%. And then action item 3, leading with mirror first accountability. You can't hold others to a standard you aren't willing to live by yourself. So remember, public apologies with no excuses, right?
Hmm.
We do not do excuses. We work on the reasons in private, but in public, it's all me. And then having that standard bearer audit where we're really identifying the things we're most lax about, whether it's being late to meetings, not replying quickly to people, things like that, and working on yourself, self improvement, leadership by
Hmm.
example. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is leadership number 6. We're talking about accountability. One more in our leadership series next week. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.